good, right? Okay. Okay.
You'll have the music soon, right?
I have it,
go on by myself.
and you just point to me and I'll start. Okay?
Well, you'll hear what I say.
Okay.
I'm not necessarily. I'm not going to point. It's too hokey.
Pointing is okay? All right.
All right, you'll know what to do.
Okay.
Hi everyone, we're going to get started. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Meg O'Sullivan. I'm the Assistant Vice President here for Student Life. And this is probably close to the 13th or 14th year we've done this program for Holocaust Remembrance Day. And it was an idea that came out of the Student Center Governing Board, and we're delighted that it's continued. Much of our success for this program is due to Manny Bakir, who, as all of us know, has retired recently, but Manny has so many connections with folks who have actually been through the Holocaust or survivors, and we're very happy that he arranged this presentation for us today. So at this point, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Manny Bakir, who's going to introduce the person who's going to introduce our speaker. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. In May 1999, at the height of the U.S. bombing during the Kosovo conflict, I was part of a humanitarian mission consisting of the sons and daughters of Holocaust survivors who journeyed to a Kosovo refugee camp to offer our help. Upon entering the children's section, blasting over the sound system was the popular disco hit, I Will Survive, sung by Grammy Award-winning singer Gloria Gaynor. This song was repeated throughout the day and was repeated every day. I witnessed the effect it had on the children. They were exuberantly dancing, jumping up and down, and dancing and trying to sing along without understanding a word of English. There was joy in the air, which was in stark contrast to the rest of the camp, which appeared to be enveloped by gloom and despair. It became immediately apparent that this upbeat song, I Will Survive, served as an anthem of hope and the will to survive. Knowing of the special bond between Gloria Gaynor and Annie Bleiberg, our keynote speaker, it gives me great pleasure to call upon Grammy Award-winning singer and author Gloria Gaynor to introduce our keynote speaker, Annie Bleiberg. Please welcome Gloria Gaynor.
Good morning. Good morning. I see that we all have survived the morning and have survived the winter. How about that? Well, most of us have heard about the horrors of the Nazi camps, the Nazi death camps, since we were children. We try to imagine the people who were involved, both the perpetrators and the victims. I'm sure that many of us have ideas about what the survivors are like, but it's impossible for us to really know because we've never suffered anything like what they've suffered. When I was first invited to visit the Holocaust Museum in Long Island, I was told that I would also have the opportunity to actually meet a Holocaust survivor. Well, I could never have prepared myself for the exuberant, lovely lady that walked into the area where we were waiting for her appearance. She had a temperament that showed a zest for life and appreciation and gratitude for life that you would expect from someone who had enjoyed personal freedom throughout their entire life and who had never been mistreated by anyone. She is a wonderful, lovely lady. She had more energy, way more energy than I did, and I just never expected anyone like her to come into the room when they told me I was meeting a Holocaust survivor. She's a charming woman and a wealth of information in many areas. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an absolute delight, my pleasure, my honor to introduce to you the lovely, the inimitable Annie Bleiberg.
There's nothing I can say. I don't like, I'm so little, I'm gonna stay there.
You're gonna stand there. Do you need this?
Well, not really.
Okay, I'll leave it there.
Test. You're a superstar.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon. It was real a pleasure and honor to be here today. It was a double pleasure to be introduced by Gloria Gaynor that we met some time ago, about a year or two ago. We were introduced and we clicked. We are both survivors. And I will tell you now my story of survival. As you know already, I'm a Holocaust survivor, I'm an Auschwitz survivor. I was running and I was hiding and I did everything to survive, and I did. Well, I'm also going to tell you and introduce myself as such, that yes, I'm going to tell you some of my story, some of my experiences during the Holocaust. I can't possibly tell you all. It's too long, too much to listen. But I'll tell you one thing. I'm not going to tell you only my story. I'm going to try to tell you and to talk about, and for all those 6 million Jews who perished during the Holocaust, 1.5 million children who were mercilessly killed, and of course all the others, millions of people who did perish on the battlegrounds because of Hitler and his henchmen, his army. Well, once upon a time, a long time ago, I would say, maybe not so long, I was a young girl, I was a high school student, and I will blow my own horn, I say, I was a good student. And my mother did, and I do recommend to everyone when I speak to junior high and high school kids, learn and study. Education, I don't have to say it here, because you all know that education is key to success. You're not only helping yourself, your family, but you are helping mankind. Because you are educated, you know to think and to evaluate situations. You also know how to be involved in the right parties and the right causes. Well, I was lucky enough to be able to go to high school before the war. Parents had to pay for it. It's not like here in the United States. And I had a nice life. We didn't have any cars, or that many anyway. We didn't have any telephones. My father only had a telephone in business, not at home. But we had a nice life. I had a younger sister, and that was my family. And everything changed abruptly. September 1st, 1939, when Hitler attacked Poland and the Second World War started. Before that, Hitler made a pact with the Russians, divided Poland into two, and we happened to live on the western side of that border on the River Sun. 4 weeks later, Hitler expelled all the Jews from all the villages, towns, and cities to the Russian side. Most of those people were taken the same winter to Siberia, where living conditions were really hard, very hard. The climate was very bad, severe, even worse than we had this winter here. But most people survived. Came back to Poland, subsequently to Germany, went to Palestine and then Israel, and a lot of those people came here to the United States. We, my family and I, we were lucky at the time insofar that we were able to stay in my grandfather's house right on the other side of the border. We had the occupation of the Russians. Life wasn't peaches and cream, but was bearable. And a year and a half later, unfortunately, the same Hitler who made a pact with the Russians and gave him half of Poland attacked the Russians, and they weren't prepared. Hitler attacked the Russians, marched eastward all through Poland, way into the Russian territory, always north to Latvia, Lithuania, and got stuck by around Leningrad or St. Petersburg, and that was the start of Hitler's demise, of Hitler's returning to his own territories. Because the climate was too cold, there was no roads for the heavy machinery for Hitler, there was no oil. They took a very bad beating and had to start returning. But all the time when Hitler's armies were fighting, Hitler and his henchmen were more preoccupied of killing Jews, putting Jews into ghettos, from the ghettos to labor camp, slaving camps, and to death camps. And those death camps and those slaver camps were all over Germany and Poland. People were dying en masse. And we, as much as we were in that small town, Oleszyce, were put into a ghetto, Lubachów, and about 3 months later, the very beginning of January 1943, were also put into a warehouse, liquidated all, crammed into cars, and shipped to Belzec. Belzec was a death camp on arrival. And you people and many other people do not know much about Belzec, even so the 500,000 to 600,000 Jews were killed there because there were no survivors. Only 2 people somehow miraculously survived. One was killed a week or 2 later after liberation. One supposedly were able to get to Palestine at the time, Israel now, but I don't know what's happened to him. Well, and it's a long time ago. It's 70-some years. Who knows if he is alive? And now comes the big question. How come I'm here? I was taken in, my family, we were taken all en route to Belzec. But we knew what Belzec meant, just as I said, death on arrival. Because at this time Hitler was not afraid of the world opinion. The world was busy with the war. So he could do and did everything he wanted That means annihilate all the Jews possibly everywhere on the earth. And he did that and open. The people around, the Polish people who lived around that city, Belzec, knew and saw what was going on and was telling the others, like the Jewish people in the ghetto. And at the same time, we also heard news that the war will end soon, like 2 or 3 months from then. And who doesn't want to live? And who doesn't want to survive a war and go on living a normal life? And we all thought, my family did, well, we'll survive. And I must say, and I'll say it again and again, we had a lot of help from non-Jewish people. And what do you mean by help? Well, a few potatoes, some kind of a little bread, just to go on, the necessities. But those Gentile peoples were really saints. They were real human beings because they jeopardized their own life to help their neighbor, their friend. Even so, she was not Christian, was not Roman or Greek Catholic, because the town Oleszyce, our friends, my friends, were Roman and Greek Catholics. I personally, my family personally, never lived in a really strictly Jewish neighborhood. We had friends, all kind of religious and other denominations. And we respected each other, and we helped each other. And when after the war, my daughter and I and my granddaughter went to Poland to visit Poland, and we met one of those Polish at the time, young lady, and my daughter asked her, Helka was her name, unfortunately she is no more here. She said, why did you do it? And her parents did it too. You jeopardized your life and so. And what was her answer? A good Christian helps his fellow people in distress. This is what religion is all about it. This is what humanity is all about it. We all have maybe differences, a different upbringing, different religion, sometimes different color of eyes and hair and face. But we have 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth. We have more similarities than differences. And by respect, by really respect of each other, we can accomplish much more. We should, and we did. There were a lot of people, so-called the righteous Gentiles people, they did help Jews. I'm one of those who were helped. My husband, who is no more here, my father also, my brother-in-law, and many others that I don't know and can't mention. So here I'll just say, we have to respect each other, and we have to really work together for a better tomorrow. And they will come. We shall survive every bit, even if it's very, very hard. After there is rain, the sun, the rainbow comes out, and we will have a better tomorrow. But going now to my own problems as they occurred then, it's not that the war ended in 2.5 months or so. It lasted 2.5 cruel, awful, indescribable years. I was taken to the Belzec, and when the train was rolling, my mother helped me pushed me up and out to jump from the train. I want you to know I was a young girl, but I was no acrobat. But there was no other way, no other, a promille, a tiny little promille chance of survival. So my mother pushed me out because my father did bring tools and opened that little window on top, or that little opening on top of that train. And I fell, I just wiggled through from the inside out. I fell to the ground and I lost my memory. I lost everything what you mean alive. And you know what means alive. I laid there like a lump in a dark navy blue coat without any feeling, without any thinking. I laid there. The train was passing, rolling to Belzer's for that. And then a shot rang out, very forceful and very near, and that shot woke me up from my lethargy. I got up immediately, and I shouldn't have, but I did not know. I didn't know where I am. I was never there. I but also did not know how I got there. I also did not know if I'm have any problems, if I shall be afraid of anybody or anything. I picked myself up. I saw the train rolling by with the German soldiers, between each and every one. And I just got a glimpse of a memory what my father said. When the train goes one way, you go the other way. And so I did. Not afraid, not a thought of being afraid. From far enough, I saw a light, and I walked towards that light. I walked in to that small vestibule. It was a little housing on the tracks, without anything being afraid of anything. But I was lucky. I want you to know I was lucky so many times. I can't begin to tell you. I don't have the time for all that. Maybe some other time, maybe next time. Well, I walked in, and there was a Polish watchman, and he was nice to me. He said, "You can't stay here. If a Polish policeman or a German soldier walks in, they'll kill you." He also told me, "Don't go with the tracks. They are hoodlums. They'll kill you, they'll beat you up, they'll take your coat, you'll freeze to death. Go with the road to the village." And I, still under that feeling of not knowing of the situation, didn't even know how to turn around to get out. He took me by my hand, he brought me out and said, "Go." And I did. And I did, and I met a woman, I don't know who she was, didn't know then, and I still don't know who she was. We walked together. She was from the vicinity, knocked on doors and windows to some settlers there, but there was either no answer or there was an answer. "Go away. I'm afraid." I did not know, I did not understand what that answer meant, but I was going along. And we walked till we came to one homestead. And I remember 72 years ago, or 74 years ago, no, 3, 4, I can't count, so forgive me, you do the counting. It's quite some time ago, but I remember his face. He was standing in the door with a lantern. I don't remember if we said anything, but he let us in. I remember the inside of the room, and he gave us each a potato. I don't know if it was cooked or baked or whatever, but I'll tell you a secret. I have never before or after ate such a good potato as that potato was. Well, we stayed there for a while, and then he woke us up and said, you have to go. It was all nighttime. And he said, because if you will be leaving my house, his house, at daylight, you will be killed, and he and his family will be in jeopardy, might be killed too. I had a wristwatch, a silver wristwatch, and I offered him. But he was so much of a human being, so nice, in such a distressful time, and he said, you keep the watch. You might needed it for a piece of bread. That was the value of a watch. But I can't keep you. Not in the barn, not between the cows, nowhere, not on my homestead property. And so we had to leave. We left, and we walked a little while longer, and we came back to the ghetto. And what a sight. We went in. We went into one or two houses. They were empty and eerie, scary, very. And slowly but surely, I got that, not fully normal, but I get that feeling of being what means being afraid. Why? I still didn't know until much later. That woman stayed in one of the houses because she was shot in one of her legs and could not walk. I was determined to go to the other side of the ghetto because this is where we left, and this is where my family made up. If anybody by any remote chance will somehow be able to escape, we shall come back. We also did not know that Ghetto Lubachov will be completely Judenfrei, liquidated. We thought that whoever was caught and taken to that train, to those gas chambers, is gone, or will be the rest, will live on. Well, you always hope for something. You got to hope. You have to hope. Otherwise, you cannot exist. And so I came back to the house, to the room where we lived, and here again, I looked around, I recognized everything, but it was so scary, and that sort of was creeping on, that being afraid, that I was even afraid to sit down on a chair, and I decided to go to the attic, what my father did build, and where the Germans did take us. That was already like Sunday morning or so, where the Germans took us out on Friday, where the action started. As soon as I got there, and I had to make a little light, because I couldn't get it there in the dark. As soon as I got there, I heard some heavy footsteps coming up the steps, and I got real afraid. And then my father spoke up to a friend of ours, and I recognized his voice, and then I spoke up and I said, "Father, I'm here." Well, I don't have to tell you, and I can't even express myself, our feelings. We just exchanged, and we realized that the mother isn't there and my younger sister isn't there. But my mother was a sick woman, and she did not, and she said she cannot live that life. This is what's her voice for. She'll only be a hindrance to us. So we shall do everything possible to survive. She'll go where Hitler designated for her the road. Well, we stayed there over the day. The police came to search for some leftovers, for some remnants of Jews, and they would have discovered us and killed us right there. But we were lucky again. One of them said, "Let's go. There's nobody there. that policeman, and I don't know who he was, because I didn't see him, he said, I took them all out on Friday, and they left, and we were saved. We stayed there overnight, and at night we did set out back to Oleszyce, to that small town of my grandfather, and the small town where I was also born, to a Polish family. That family were our good friends in good and in bad times. That family offered us and gave us shelter in awful times where they jeopardized their own lives. They let us in. We stayed in the barn for 4 or 5 weeks. Anielka was her name, and she was a saint. She just died the same winter when we left, the same winter we were there. And she brought us food once a day. They even took us in, I say, my father and I, to the house to take a bath once or twice during the stay there. And then one day, she came and she said, you have to go. But there was nowhere to go. There was all Judenfrei, big vicinity. There were no Jews unless you had some kind of a good Gentile friend that would be willing to take you in. And they, I must say, there were some, but they couldn't take in everybody. I don't know how we, including myself, would act in a situation like that. You jeopardize your life and the life of your family. And I know of things like that happen. But that lady, Anielka Kozhey, could not make peace with the idea that I who was a friend of her daughter, who was helping to trim the Christmas tree and so on and so forth, I shall leave her house and go for sure dead. She got in touch with another Polish family, good friends of my grandfather. The 2 sons, they helped other Jewish girls too, not just me. And the 2 sons were working in the Polish underground. So one of them did work for the German unemployment agency, and he made for me so-called Aryan papers, plain English, false Polish papers. I became a Polish girl. I learned to cross myself and say a few words what I had to do in case I am caught. And the younger one took me one night, or early in the morning, from Oleszyce to Yaroslav to go to Germany to work with a group of young Polish boys and girls that were taken to work. And the reason the Germans took Polish boys and girls to work in Germany, because their youth was taken to the army, and many, many of them never came back. 2 girls who were on the grounds of those people, the Kozheys, we didn't know about it. It was not good to know, because in case you're caught, you shouldn't spill out some other names. But they went to Germany and survived in Germany, came back. One unfortunately passed away. One is still alive and kicking in Connecticut. My fate was different. Somehow, somewhere on the train, there was a girl who recognized me, squealed on me. Her words were better than mine, even with the papers. They took me out from the group. They beat me up to unconsciousness. And that was the end of my being on so-called Aryan papers. They put me to jail. They pushed me out. And after a while, they took me back in. And I did gain back consciousness. And the only thing I do remember, when one of the policemen or whoever he was said, tomorrow will kill you. And that somehow registered in my head, but there's nothing I could have done. But I had a tingle. I got afraid for a minute. Well, I stayed overnight in jail. The next day I was taken to the German people, to the German commander, and on the way, I had a Polish policeman escorted me, and here again I offered him my watch, and he too was a nice man. How lucky can you get? He said, keep the watch. If I let you go, your fate might be much worse than the one where I'm taking you. And he didn't take the watch, and he brought me to the place. I stayed there to the German police, and I stayed there for a whole day, and towards the end, against the wall, because even the Germans could not look at my mutilated black and blue and face. And towards the end, Jewish policemen from the Krakow ghetto came, took me to the ghetto, not just to the ghetto, I want you to know. They did not trust me. They put me to jail, the DP, so-called, in the Krakow ghetto. I was there for about 4 weeks or so. We were about 300 boys and girls, separated naturally, all young and still, well, what shall I say, good looking. I mean, healthy looking. Still dressed well, because you always put on the best when you're leaving everything else. And about 4 weeks later, the Krakow ghetto, I want you to know, went through many times of making it smaller and smaller, taking people out and telling them a story that they are being just resettled for better work. Well, actually, they were being resettled to death camps, to many different death camps that were all over Poland and all over Germany and some of Czechoslovakia. I'm not going to mention them all. It would take too much time. And I don't know them even all. I know a lot. The ghetto, it came the time to liquidate the Krakow ghetto. And we, the inmates of the jail, were the last one to take out. And we stood in the back of the windows, and we saw what's going on in that square known as the Umschlagplatz. And what a sight, what a horrible sight. Well, young men, healthy men yet were taken on one side to work. The same thing a few women too. And what a sight when you see a young mother giving up her little child to her mother so she can maybe be picked for work and not direct for that. Well, we were the last one out. We saw the music. We heard the music. We saw the children marching and crying and the dogs barking, and the music was playing, and the Oberscharführer, or whatever his rank was, the German was saying left, right, left, in German, actually. We, the inmates from the jail, were taken out the last one, for whatever reason. We were taken out and brought into trucks, and an open day, open trucks. Like I said before, the Germans were not afraid of anybody and anything anymore, and en route to Auschwitz. You probably all know what Auschwitz was. That was the biggest Jewish cemetery in Europe. There were also non-Jews there too. Actually, Auschwitz started with Polish and some German political people, intelligentsia, they were put to jail, they were beaten and really harmed in any and every way that you, a normal person, can even think. A lot of them died, and later on, when the Jewish situation came up, they built another camp nearby, which was Birkenau, Obrzezhinki. It's the same thing. Well, we were taken to Birkenau because there were the crematoria. We were unloaded on the ramp. We saw the flames just like from here to the other wall. We smelled the smell of the burning ashes of our brethren, but we stood there just like statues, not thinking and not feeling. You couldn't do anything. You just knew that you couldn't do anything. Only one woman from our midst, who was a little bit older, maybe 35, but still healthy and could live a nice, productive life. She was taken out of our midst, and I'll never forget that picture when she was going just like that, with one hand to death, to the crematoria, with the other hand just in the air, holding on to us. She vanished, and we, the rest of us, were ordered to go to barracks, to our big surprise, not to the crematoria. We stayed there overnight, and next day in the morning, we were taken to showers. Another big surprise. Real showers, because on the entrance to the crematoria was also a big sign that these are showers, and people had to undress there and put, like the Germans always wore in put the clothes in nice squares, but we were given real showers. Yes, the Germans were standing there and making jokes on our naked bodies. I spoke German, so I understood what they said, but my face, like any other face, was stoned. No feelings, no, just death, life but death, or death but life. I don't know which way to put it. And after the shower, our hair was shorn, and we were tattooed. We stopped being people, we became numbers. And if you could see, and you cannot, but maybe at the end, if you want to see, I not only have a number, and that group not only got a number, but we also had a triangle. And that triangle says or meant we are troublemakers. We did not obey Hitler's orders. We wanted to live. We were bent to survive. Well, the life in Auschwitz started. You probably read many books and heard many already things about Auschwitz. Life was undescribable. Was not many people, very few people rather survived. There were those long pills in the morning and little soup. But you know how will to life, how will to survive is great. We got some coffee or tea in the morning. Dirty water. It didn't smell or didn't taste like anything, to be honest. And one of the girls, we slept 4 in a row. One of the girls, we didn't know each other, but we got to know each other. One of the girls gave her ration, and we all washed our faces with that in there, not to spill a drop. Because, and not only we washed our caked eyes, but we also got a little brownish, a little tan on our faces. And you know what? We look healthier. and we had another chance maybe to survive another day of drudgery, of hard, very hard work, with little food. And the work was really so meaningless. So degrade yourself, get out of you all the dignity and will to life. But many of us unfortunately succumbed. Few of us, I am one of them, survived. There was no toilets when I came to Auschwitz, and no running water. We helped to build all that. But a year and a half later, when Hitler started to liquidate the small camps and to make smaller Auschwitz also, he took many people to other smaller camps. I was one of them, one of 500 young, still healthy looking women that were taken to Marish Weisswasser to Czechoslovakia. It was a small camp, 500 only. We worked in an ammunition factory. Life was a little bit easier. The Czechs were very nice also. A lot of them, most of them spoke German, and when they were walking the aisles and talking between them loud, they were telling, so to say, us how the war, the front looks. And so we got a little hope that the war will end soon. How soon? Nobody knew. I understood German, so I conveyed the message. They also brought a slice of bread and we shared that, or an apple and we shared that, and that helped also to survive another day. We all survived, all 500. And we knew that the war is ending. We only did not know if they'll put us in the air, if they'll burn us alive, or who knows what the Germans will come up with. But one day, we woke up, and the guard was gone. They were usually old soldiers that could not be anymore on the front, old German soldiers. And we realized that the war ended, we are free. Well, we shouted of joy, we cried. Most of us knew what happened to our loved ones. Some had still, including myself, some hope that maybe somebody somewhere survived. I left my father alive and didn't hear from him 2.5, almost 3 years, and he didn't hear from me either. Well, we still had a little hope. We stayed on the grounds, we cooked and ate potatoes that were on the grounds, and little by little, we started to leave the camp. Also, the village people came often and brought us some meals from their homes. They also took a few girls here and there to their homes for a good meal. And after that, we started to leave, but in little groups. You make friends. You make lasting friends. People need people. You cannot live alone. And as I said before, with all the differences that we have a lot of similarities. And good times and bad times bring people together and shall bring people together, because this is the success of the humanity, of the future, of a good future, a much better future, always better. And so we went to Prague, and what a sight again. People, masses of people from everywhere. People were walking, people were crawling, some couldn't even walk, so they were taken to sanatoriums or hospitals, and there you had to register, and you got an ID card, and you got a meal or somewhere where to sleep in hospitals, churches, schools, and so on. I was lucky again. Oh, I was lucky so many times. I can't even begin to tell you all the times I was lucky. Otherwise, I'm lucky even that I can speak to a wonderful audience today like you. Well, I and 4 other girls, 2 from Poland, Jewish girls from Poland, and 2 Jewish girls from Czechoslovakia. One of the girls had an uncle who lived in Prague before the war, who was married to a non-Jewish woman and had 2 children. But when Hitler came, he or she filed for divorce. She was able to stay with her children in Prague in the apartment. He was vanished. And when the war ended, he came up and he helped us to get a nice place in a hospital that we did not have to stay in line for supper. Well, after a few weeks, we roamed the streets, we visited Prague. Prague was not bombed. Prague is an old city and remained like that intact all during the war. For whatever reason, I can't tell you. Well, after a while, people started to leave, and most of the people were going back to Germany because they had nowhere to go. And in Germany, there were empty barracks of the soldiers who did not return, who just got killed during the war. And this was the beginning of the so-called the DP, Displaced Persons Camp. People stayed there a year or 2, life started to get organized, the different kind of organizations, churches, a lot of the United States came with help. I and the 2 other Polish girls, against everybody's advice, were planning and did return to Poland. Now, everybody advised not to go because already after the war, when there were not, before the war, I want you to know there were about 3 million Jews in Poland, but after the war, there were nobody, or very, very few who were hiding and coming out of the hiding. Well, we went back. And we went back against all the advice because there was anti-Semitism coming up again. Because the people were greedy, maybe, surely. They got some stuff from the Jews that left their homes, and they were afraid or didn't want to give it back. And some people asked for, and I'll tell you something about myself when I went back to Poland with my daughter and granddaughter, but many years later, in 92 or 93. Well, we went back to Poland, and we registered again in one of the cities, and the 2 girls who were from that vicinity were going to look for some friends or somebody where to be able to stay overnight or more than just one overnight. I stayed there. I came from the east, so I couldn't look for anybody there, possibly. But I was sitting in that room, and I was watching 3 men standing, and they were dressed differently, not like the Western Jews, but rather like the Eastern one. And they were talking and gesticulating, and I didn't hear them all, but I was watching them. And one I overheard said, "Well, we better go, we'll be late." I picked that up, and I came over and I said, "I hear you're going somewhere, where are you going?" And they said they're going eastward to a big city, Lublin, and I thought I might have there somebody surviving, and I asked for that man, and they said, of course, he's alive. One of them wanted to take me right with them, but I didn't want to go because that meant I would disappear. My friends would know what happened to me. There was no telephone, there was no post office. So I stayed, and I offered, and I suggested, and I did, write a little note to that man that I'm alive and in here. And they said they'll come back the following week. Well, they brought me a note from that man that my father is alive too. Well, what can I tell you? My father went west and I went east. It took 2 months till we got together, but we finally got together. My father convinced me, against my wishes, I must say, to go to my grandfather's house. I didn't want to go. I said, there's nothing there. The house is empty. And yes, I had very good memories at one time, but the recent memories, I was very awful and I was afraid. But I went, and we almost paid with our lives. Now, we weren't targeted, but the Polish on the ground and the Russian on the ground were fighting, and bullets do not ask any questions. They hit anybody and everybody who is in the way. Well, we survived. We survived, and a few days later, we set out to go west, where there were more Jews. There were no Jews in that town anymore. And there were also some, we were held up, and there were so many calamities and so many problems, but somehow we always turned around and we were all right. We always had some help from somebody from the Gentile community. So we got back to Krakow, to Breslau. We settled there. I met my husband. I met my husband before, and one of the girls said when we met, we knew each other, we knew each other's families. We said, oh, Annie has already a boyfriend, about 7, 8 months or so in April 45, 46, we got married. Oh, April, it's just now. Maybe April 7th was my anniversary. Unfortunately, my husband is gone 36 years. Well, we got married. We had a child in Germany, and the reason we did, our daughter was born in Germany, and the reason we did have a child, because I had a car accident, and our papers and many other papers were delayed because the immigration law was changed in the United States, and so it took us 4 years in Germany to come to the United States. I'm a happy and fortunate mother of a beautiful daughter who's a college professor. Her husband's a college professor too. I have three beautiful grandchildren. They are all professionals and doing well, and I take a little bit credit of it because I always said, you better study, you study. Studying is good for you. Studying opens doors and windows to a better life. And they listened, well, so that's good luck too. And I do have two delicious great-grandchildren. One is 7 and one is 5. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm lucky enough that I connect with people, and we were introduced, and we really clicked with Gloria Gaynor. We became close friends. We visited each other's homes at different occasions. She was at Passover in my daughter's house. I used to make big Passovers too, but I can't do it lately, so you'll forgive me. You're not invited now. We were in Gloria's house for Christmas and some other time. We were good friends, and this I contribute to my good luck. I meet nice people, and I connect with those nice people. I did write and called half of Europe. Unfortunately, the people are passing on, and the cycle dwindles. That goes also for the cycle here in the United States. I am also lucky enough because I have a wonderful, wonderful audience that listen to my speech, to my thinking, my experiences, and what I have learned from my experiences. And sometimes many times. I'm not bashful. I do recommend certain things to people, and people do listen to me. What an honor and what a privilege. So here I will say again, I know you are on that path. Education is important to you, so continue. Tell your friends and relatives, education, 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 most important. Tolerance, 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 understanding each other. That is most important, and that builds a better future for all mankind. And I hope we will live long enough, including myself, and see a better tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Annie.
I just want to say on behalf of Res Life and Student Center Governing Board,
Well,
it was our pleasure
it
to have you
wouldn't
here.
be, I could not go away, I could not finish my presentation to you without thanking for listening so beautifully, so quietly. But I also must say that I firmly believe that I am here also thanks to my grandfather's divine intervention. Because when I was in hiding by the Koshis, and there was no place to go, he came in my dreams, and when I wanted to run to him, because I had nobody nowhere to go, and I didn't know that he's dead already at the time, well, he said to me with his finger pointing just like that, in Yiddish, but you stay here. Well, I obeyed his orders. I'm here, and I'm here to talk to people, and people listen to me. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much.
I must have, thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. Yes, I will. Can you? No, I will. But could you take it? That's so heavy, and I must have a drink of water. Yes. I'll carry this, and I'll take a sip.